Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Original Medicine Podcast. Today, we are talking about one of my very favorite topics, the low channels. And what this means is bleeding treatments. These are the channels that we prick a point to bleed. And so it gets a lot of attention just because of the shock factor. And I want to tell you my story about how I was introduced to them, how I felt in the beginning. So if you feel squeamish about this, if you feel like I'm about to talk about something really crazy, buckle up, stay with me. I promise I'm going to explain it in a way that makes it really clear why you might want to consider this for yourself. So first, low channels are channels that form in order to protect us. There is something that has come into the body or something otherwise that is a threat to the system, so our body perceives. And so it whisks away that threat and stores it in the body elsewhere using blood. So how my teacher, Ann Cecil Sturman, teaches us, or taught me years and years ago, was that through angiogenesis, that's how the body makes blood vessels. The body uses blood, makes more vessels to store this thing that has become a threat to the body otherwise. And before we get too far into that, I just want to back up to give you sort of the refresher of Chinese medicine. A long, long time ago in a galaxy far away, there was the complete system of Chinese medicine. And then Mao came into power in China and said, we do not want this anymore. We're going to ban the practice of acupuncture. So acupuncture was no longer practiced for a period of time, in which time people started getting sick because this was a primary mode of healthcare. So he said, we have to do something about this. He had his little committee decide amongst themselves how they were going to bring acupuncture back into practice. And the way they decided to do this was to take points from primary channels. Stay with me because this is going to make sense to you in a second, but I just got to give you the pieces. They took points from primary channels, and these are the things that you've heard of before. If you've been to an acupuncturist, if you have heard anything about acupuncturists, people talk about the spleen, the liver, the gallbladder, the small intestine, all those things that resonate with our modern day understanding of the body, like allopathic medicine's perspective. We use those same words, no problem, okay? Nothing outlandish here. But what they did was take points from those channels, the primary channels, and they put them together based on what they thought they could treat symptom-wise. So if someone says, I have digestive problems, the TCM committee said, we're going to use spleen 6, stomach 36, maybe spleen 4, maybe spleen 9, maybe stomach 30. To be honest, I really don't know what those prescriptions are. I try to put them as far out of my mind as possible, but this is how TCM was created. Somebody says, I have back pain. They say, okay, we're going to use bladder 60 and maybe we're going to use kidney 3. You get what I'm saying? It's very mechanical. It's based on chasing symptoms, but it shockingly works fairly well. For a lot of people, it does. The problem with this is that there are all these other channels, 4 other different types of channels called the other channels, the complete channel system, complement channels, the 5-channel system, referring to the 4 other ones, plus the primary channels. And the complement channels, these other channels, their job is to step in when something threatens the primary channels. And this is a super important function that got left out. And the low channels are one of those complement channels that steps in when the primaries become overwhelmed. And this is why I keep trying to say over and over in every episode, if you have received acupuncture in the past and it did not get you where you thought you could go, don't lose hope yet. It's very likely that the primary channel treatment that you received was not sufficient enough to really get to where the problem is being stored in your body. It doesn't mean that your acupuncturist is bad. It just means that that's what they know and that's what they're working off of. It doesn't mean that you can't be helped. It just means that we need to really back up and look at the whole picture, use the whole system, because TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, this is what we all learn in acupuncture school, no matter where we go in the world. We learn TCM acupuncture. It is an extremely small part of the whole system of Chinese medicine. When the lows perceive a threat, we've eaten something that has like some sort of, toxic, I really kind of hate that word, but you know what I'm saying? Something that's not truly food. It's like some plastic from the container that the food was in or stored in. It's pesticides that, was still on the food that we ate. It's a medication that we took. Okay, you get that point. but also it's an emotion that was not expressed. So all of those channels that I mentioned, 12 different organs have 12 different channels that talk to each other. The channel's job is to express the emotion associated with that organ. So again, if you're familiar at all with acupuncture, you've probably heard things like the lung is associated with grief, the liver is associated with anger, the gallbladder is associated with indecision or frustration. These kinds of things are for sure true, but there's usually another layer to them. But the purpose is that the channel will express those emotions. So if you find yourself in a situation where you cannot express your emotion, let's say you're in a meeting and you get bad news and you have to go back into that meeting and basically pull it together. Someone close to you died and you're feeling the grief, but you just shove it down. Or let's say you grew up in a household with parents who were not very emotionally skilled themselves, as is very common. You're not allowed to express that emotion. They tell you to suck it up, buttercup. And so down it goes, whether it's that you're angry, whether you're sad, whether you're happy, whatever it is, bottle it up, push it down. We don't want to hear it. These things lead to low vessel problems, okay? Because that looks like a threat to the operation of the body. The 24/7 operation of the body is handled by the primary channels. So if there's something that came in, just anything, and in Chinese medicine, we generically call this pathology. Anything that looks like the threat is just going to be referred to generically as pathology. Sometimes we can tell what it is, sometimes we can't. Doesn't really matter for the purpose of understanding the value of the low treatment. So that thing came in and the primary channel said, oh my goodness, like we can't have this here because we have a connection to the organ, and that pathology could affect the organ and this person could literally die. This is a bit of an exaggeration, right? But you get the point. That's the thought process behind the whole complete system of acupuncture. So in this case, we are using our blood to store this problem over in the low vessels. Low channels do not exist without the presence of pathology. They only exist to help us out. So they whisk it away, they put it in the blood vessels. The assumption is that we will address it. Somehow we will process that emotion. Somehow we will release that toxicity. And if we have enough mediumship, enough resources that I also am always talking about, we perhaps do have the means to release the pathology, whether it's like the toxic substance or an emotion. Maybe we have time to process the loss that we experienced, whatever the emotion was that we had prior that went into the low vessel. We get to it in therapy or whatever. And then it's gone. So it's not with us anymore and it's not causing a problem. But for those of us who did not have the time and space or the mediumship to release this problem from the low vessels, we've still got it sitting around in the body. And so because this is an offshoot of the primary channel, it starts to affect the functioning of the primary channel. So if you think to yourself, what do our lungs do? Yes, breathing. But in Chinese medicine, lungs also send down energy. They are responsible for taking in energy, but with the support of the kidneys, the lungs do not operate. Nothing in our body operates alone. And this is also the beauty of Chinese medicine, is that all of our organs and our channels are interrelated. But let's just take the example of the lung. The lung sends energy down to its pair, the large intestine. So remember, we have experienced a significant loss. We have not had the time and space to process that loss. The loss is now pathology that is stored in the low vessel. And over time, that wears on the channel itself, because it's kind of like holding a big weight all day long. And you may have heard me talk about this, so I don't mean to repeat myself, but in case you're new here, the way I like to describe low channels are, if I handed you a 50-pound kettlebell and I said, I want you to just hold this. Everything you do all day long, I want you to take it around with you. You would get tired, and so you would figure out another way to carry it. You would get a tote bag, perhaps, and then after that got heavy on your shoulder, you would say, well, I'm going to put it in a backpack because then it will evenly distribute the weight. And then that backpack might get heavy. And so then you get like a fancier material backpack that can distribute the weight better. All these are coping mechanisms, and that's what the complement channels kind of are in a sense. They are ways that our body helps itself cope with the stuff that comes in, that we experience, that we can't deal with at the moment, and it puts it in different places. Again, this is the importance of being well resourced. So this goes back to the importance of a hydrating diet. When we eat a dry diet, we deplete those resources and we prevent our bodies from being able to make more of the resources. And over time, you're just going to burn through resources. Think of it like you start out with a bank account with $10,000, but you don't have any income coming in, but you still have expenses. This is kind of how I think about mediumship as well. You have mediumship. Everyone has mediumship if you're still alive. But if you're eating and living in a way that is going to use up the mediumship, which we all are using mediumship by being alive, but we're not replacing it and we're not supporting the replenishment, that gets really tricky. This is also what happens in low channels because the lows are using your blood to hold that pathology. And over time, that creates heat because it has created a stagnation because it's holding and we've got to let it out. So, like back to the kettlebell example, if I take it back from you, then I've made it easier for you to go about your daily activities. If we bleed the low channel, we have now released that pathology and it makes it easier for your body to do the things that it is intended to do. So in the example of the lung may have a difficult time sending energy down in the body to its pair, the large intestine, and that may result in constipation. You also could have a situation where you have an IBS presentation. So you sometimes have constipation, sometimes you have loose stools, sometimes you have normal bowels because perhaps the lung is sometimes able to function. It thinks maybe you're getting rid of this pathology, but then no, not quite. And maybe it releases too much and then you have diarrhea, loose stools, that sort of thing. And so then it pulls back as a result. And now you have constipation. So the lung low channel can be extremely useful for releasing pathology that could be contributing to digestive problems. Another example of where the lung low can be helpful is extremely helpful when you start feeling like you're getting a cough. If I feel a cough coming on or a sore throat for that matter, absolutely, I'm going to go right to the lung low and bleed that because a cough is energy coming up. Like just think about how it feels when you cough, like air is coming from your body and that's the wrong way for the energy to go. We need the energy to go down. And so if you bleed your lung low, that will release what is being held in the lung, perhaps either pathology, definitely heat, and help the lung qi right itself so that it continues to go downward the way we want it to go. Okay, so to recap, the importance of treating lows and the reason that we use bleeding to treat the lows is because the lows use blood to store the problem. So let's say you're going to a TCM acupuncturist and you are getting treated for a lung problem. Let's take this example again. Or maybe it's not a lung problem in your mind. You're having digestive problems. You have loose stools and alternating with constipation sometimes. Whatever the problem is, doesn't matter. And y'all, I'm definitely not saying that all digestive problems are a result of the lung, but I am saying that this is a commonly missed concept in Chinese medicine. I think a lot of people learn this in school, but they don't put it together in this way because we have not been taught the complement channels in school. Acupuncturists will say, oh yeah, I'm familiar with low connecting points. Yes, in name, but there is no instruction about how to actually use them, what they do, and it's certainly no instruction about how to bleed them. And so what I'm trying to get across is this is a really valuable treatment for everyone to know about, for acupuncturists to use, for people who are not acupuncturists to know about so that they know that there's help for them. I think there's nothing worse than feeling like you've exhausted all your efforts, you've tried all the things, and you haven't gotten better. So this is why I like to talk about the lows so much, because it is an often missed thing. If your acupuncturist is treating you for digestive problems and using the digestive organs, that may seem logical in everyone's mind, but we're missing a critical component, which is that all the organs work together. And the lung does send down energy to the large intestine, as I mentioned before, but the lung may not be doing its job because it is burdened by the storage of the low channels. So one quick treatment of the low channels can really open up the ability of the lung to continue doing what we expect it to do. And then so many digestive problems resolve from this. Okay, let's talk about what the low channel treatment actually looks like. When I use low channel treatments in my office, we are always going to open the low channel itself. Now, I don't want to get too jargony, of course, but if you imagine like a little map, like let's imagine a line and there's a starting point and there's a finishing point. The starting point is your opening point. And so in my mini class, I teach people how to bleed themselves using only the opening point. I am showing people how to locate it with a video, drawings. I have written instructions. What I'm doing is showing you how to find the point. You take a lancet and just like poke the skin. This is very safe. I'm not worried about it at all. I think it's really I think it's such a benefit to people. That's why I created the mini class and why I intend to create more. All I have right now is the spleen and the liver low. So these are emotions that have to do with overthinking and worry going around and around in your mind. That's the spleen. And then liver is anger. And I think that these two things go together frequently because there's something that you keep thinking about over and over in your mind. And that overthinking creates a sense of anger because you're having the same conversation with yourself over and over. And I think that those two together are really common. I see them a lot in practice. We've all experienced that at some time, I think. So anyway, that's why I started with the spleen and liver low. And when I teach the layperson to do this, as I mentioned, I'm just teaching you the opening point. And that in itself is a low treatment. It's fine. It's done. You can stop there. I recommend for lay people to stop there. I don't want you to continue bleeding the channel unless you have some additional training. I don't think it's wise. It's not necessary. And you can just leave it at that. In my clinic, though, if there are other discolorations or vessels that I see on the channel after the opening point, those I will bleed, depending on a patient's tolerance. These are not generally comfortable treatments, though I will say I have had a significant number of people say, oh, I didn't even feel that. Oh, that wasn't bad at all. I do it to myself quite a bit. I do think it hurts. I do it because it's so powerful. It's so useful. And before I wrap up this episode, I just want to throw into the conversation that all the low channels can fill completely. And when they fill, they will start to spill back toward the primary channels. This is where we get things like nodules and cysts and swelling because the body is still trying to protect you. It's trying to put something in the way between the low channel and the primary channel so that that pathology that is low vessel has run out of ability to hold. It doesn't get back to the primary channel because the primary channel has access directly to the organ. It's still trying to protect you, okay? So think to yourself, like, do I have anything that's kind of lumpy, bumpy, cyst, Baker's cyst, any of the things like people will often say, oh yeah, like I had this kind of cyst, I had to have it drained. That is what we call in classical Chinese medicine an empty lobe. If you have like a nodule or like some other kind of bump, right? That can also be an empty lobe. And we treat that a little bit differently. It's not really necessary to get into this in this episode, but what I do want you to know is that when the lobes fill and they are really full, then they have to put the pathology somewhere else too. And often the path is going to be the divergent channels. And the divergent channels are the ones that are affected most commonly when we get into a lot of chronic disease, the autoimmune diseases, even organ disease. And the far end of this is where allopathic medicine will diagnose cancer. We see this as an inability of the mediumship to hold this pathology in latency. And because it has been so exhausted, the term in Chinese medicine is heat toxin, that there is no more mediumship to hold. So the toxin has been allowed out into the body and, you know, things are going nuts. Like it's very similar to like how allopathic medicine sees cancer. And of course, like Chinese medicine, the scope of practice does not allow for us to say we treat cancer. So please don't misconstrue that that's what I'm saying. But it is also true that people who have been told there are no more allopathic cancer treatment options have been treated with divergence with exceptional results. It's just usually not where people start. It's more like a thing of, hey, I'm out of treatment options and I'm looking for something to help me feel as good as possible during the time I have left to live. And then lo and behold, like I have multiple years left. But so just to reiterate that it's really important to treat the low channels because it is holding something for you that can pretty easily be released out of the body. So you no longer have to hold it. So you no longer have to worry about it going into a deeper level of the body and potentially causing a problem for you on down the line. So typically, you guys know that I tend to treat a lot of chronic and or weird diseases, things that people say I just can't figure out. My lab work looks fine, but I've had this and that problem. People have a variety of presentations, like when I get into their pulse. So I'm never trying to say that lows are going to be the only thing that a person needs, but I will tell you that lows are a thing for almost everyone that I see. They're just common because commonly we don't know how to deal with ourselves. We obviously, there's plenty of like external pathogen type stuff around us. That's just the world we live in. We can't be in a bubble. That's normal. But more importantly, I think, or maybe just as importantly, I should say, is the emotional component. I don't think that as a culture, we have, and I mean culture across the world. I used to think that this was specific to Americans or maybe just specific to where I grew up in the southern US. But as I have been involved in an international community learning this medicine and hearing about their personal experiences, their patients' experiences, I've seen that the same things that happen in families here happen in families in Spain and happen in families in Israel and happen in families in Australia. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's just the human experience. And I think that as humans, we have fairly poor emotional skills. And I do think that that's shifting. I think it's changing. We're realizing how important emotional intelligence is and emotional skills and like tracking like our thoughts and our mindset. I think that that is growing, albeit slowly, it is improving. And I think that is an incredible benefit. So, along with low channel treatments in my office, I do try to help people find the original thought, like go back as far as they can. If the thought is that they were not connected, that they were not safe, we want to try to think about when was the first time you remember feeling that way? Because it could be when you were very, very young and you didn't even realize that you had that belief because it just became part of you. And so, treating the low channels, releasing that, people have huge experiences sometimes on the table because they realize, oh my gosh, I was protecting everyone else, but I wasn't protecting myself. You know, I was standing up for everyone else, but I wasn't standing up for myself. And this person I'm thinking about in particular had had a mystery cough for like 10 years, and she had seen all the doctors. No one could find anything wrong with her, but she continued to cough and cough and cough. And I treated her once with low channels, the lung low, and also the pericardium low, which is protecting who you are. And her cough mostly went away. Like she still had a little bit of a cough, but it was just like this drastic improvement in one treatment. I've had a similar experience with someone who had a black line through the vision in one of their eyes. This had been going on for like a year and a half. She had seen all the doctors. There was nothing that they could see was wrong with her causing this problem. One low treatment, 95% gone. This was connected to the fact that she wanted, in my opinion, I mean, I think she agreed when I explained what this low was about. This was the heart low. She had been wanting to transition out of her middle management career in corporate America type job. And she wanted to move into something that was creative, artsy, and she had all the pretty standard reservations. Will I have clients? Will people come to me? Will I be able to support myself? All of these things. And it was preventing her from moving forward, doing what she really felt that she was meant to be doing, which was something in the art space, graphic design, this type of thing. And that was resulting in her having this blurred vision because the heart connects with the eyes. There are all of these really intricate connections in Chinese medicine. And this is why, again, like I think it's so important for people to know about complement channels specifically because there are so many interrelated things that when one thing is affected, you could be having this odd, weird symptom and it be a very simple treatment. Yet it's not simple in your life at all. Like it's really causing people, like a lot of people have a lot of issues that are causing them a whole lot of suffering and really debilitating them. And the treatments can be quite simple and quick too. So if you have been told there's nothing someone can do for you, there's no more treatment available for a problem that you're having, you're just going to have to live with it. This is absolutely not true in 99.5% of cases, I would be willing to bet. You just need to get connected with someone who sees the body in a different way, someone who practices a form of medicine that sees these intricacies and the ways that all of our organs and the energy in our body is interrelated. I think that is really important. And when you connect with somebody like that, I think your health is really going to change. So if you're struggling with something, don't give up. The lows may be for you. And again, like they're not quite as scary as they first sound like. Sometimes we're talking about literally one poke with a lancet. The same thing as if you would go in to give blood, they might check your hemoglobin real quick with a finger stick. It's never the pads of your fingers that we're sticking. That's always somewhere else, like on an arm, a leg. So it's really not that scary. And as I've been talking about now for probably like 20 minutes, the benefit is really almost immeasurable. So that's it for me for today on the low channels. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, could you please give it a rating? Would you just like click that little star, drop a comment? It really helps. I'm just this tiny little podcaster in my tiny little corner, and I really want people to learn about the complement channels. I hope this helps you if you are a layperson looking for more understanding of Chinese medicine, or if you're looking for a solution to a health problem that you've come up short other places. And I really want to help spreading the message. I don't get paid to do this. I don't have sponsors. I do it because I genuinely care. And I want to teach people that there are other options out there. So thank you for listening. See you next time.